everybody. Welcome back to Digital Doughnuts. This is a video game book club podcast inspired by Pixelated Playgrounds podcast of the same type. Today, yet again, I am joined by Orfather.
Hello, everybody.
Hello, indeed. And this week, this month, we are playing or did play Spiritfarer. Important note is we actually, neither of us beat the game. So, and we're sorry, the episode came out. I think this is like almost a week after it was going to, mostly just because of the holidays and stuff kind of got in the way. We're recording this on the 30th of December, so right before New Year's. But we are excited to hop into this episode and to talk about Spiritfarer. So, I guess first off, let's go into first impressions.
Awesome. I got a lot to say. The reason I didn't beat the game is kind of the reason I enjoyed the first chunk of the game so much. When I first booted it up, it was a really fresh experience, and I felt like the first 5 hours were just magic. There was so much to explore. It was presented extremely well. The game, from a visual and audio standpoint, is beautiful to play, to watch, and experience. But that blast of fresh, imaginative, newness that the game brought and its originality only happens at the beginning. And from then on, you figure out what the game is, and that kind of dives into a pretty repetitive grind throughout the rest of the game. Which is why after about 10 to 15 hours, we kind of petered out as we were like, is this it? There's some new characters to meet, places to go. But after your first few hours, the game really settles into a long term, this is going to be a while to play.
Yeah, for sure. I totally missed out. I'm going to read out exactly what Spiritfarer is. So this is just going off the wiki here. Spiritfarer is an indie management sim and sandbox action game developed and published by Canadian studio Thunder Lotus Games and released for Microsoft Windows, Mac OS, blah, 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 everything basically, on August 18th, 2020. Going off of your first impressions, I just feel like I should give a little background to what this game actually is, right?
Yeah.
I guess just starting off, my first impression was, oh my gosh, the animation is awesome.
Oh yeah.
It's beautiful. And I do share a lot of the sentiments you just shared about the grind that it develops. But I think first off, the initial jumping off point for this game is literally just boom, boom, boom. It's awesome. You get all these different gameplay elements. Oh, you're on a boat. You can sail. Oh my gosh. The music is great. It starts off so strong. This game has the best part of this game is the first impression, for sure. I say.
Oh yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Once I booted it up, I couldn't stop playing for the rest of the day. The basic premise of the game is that you're Spiritfarer is the name, right? You're ferrying spirits around, accomplishing their final things they want to do in life before they die, and then you find more spirits, and that kind of carries on. And right off the bat, you meet someone who's basically death, who looks just nuts, and he's like, "Yo, want a boat?" And you're like, "Ah!" And you get a boat, and then you're fishing, and then you're sailing, and you meet all these characters. And agreeing with you on the animation, I was actually at the beginning, one of the first little mechanics for resources you get is fishing. And I found myself just as I started to fish, I just watched the animation of the water splashing. And I wouldn't actually pay attention to am I pulling the fish in? There's kind of a little gimmick you got to do with it. And I was just watching the splash. I was like, wow, that sure looks pretty. Wow, there it is again. I need to be catching things. Oh, there's a game here. But it was just beautiful to watch and to play right at the beginning.
100% agree. It is just bleeding with personality. This whole game is just bleeding with personality, especially like you said, right at the beginning, you start out in this little boat with his name is Chiron, I think,
Oh yeah.
like the Greek farer of the dead, right?
Mhm.
Spiritfarer, haha.
Oh.
Um, and I don't know. This game has a really interesting world, very interesting concept where you're almost in this
Mhm.
like limbo space. I don't quite understand it, but it seems to be like you're in the afterlife almost, and you are meeting with these spirits, and you have to get them on your boat and then help satisfy their needs or whatever so that they can move on to the
Mhm.
actual afterlife or something.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's what you also thought.
Yeah, not super well explained. Like, is this Earth where they? It seems like some of the characters were part of our life previously, but definitely not all of them. So, is it like our character, our main character, going through and experiencing things and meeting people from her life, or just randoms that happen to be? It's a little bit unclear, and that was part of the puzzle I was hoping to solve when playing, and it never really becomes clear. Perhaps it does after you've put in 20, 30 hours, but at least for our initial 10 to 15-hour playthrough, it was like, oh, the world's a little bit hazy, but it doesn't matter because you have a cat, so it's okay. And I was like, oh, that sounds good.
Yeah,
I
you
just kind of went along
certainly,
with it.
yeah, you
It
do
was
have a
fun either
cat.
way.
Um, yeah. So, what would you say is like was the strongest thing that impressed upon you right at the beginning?
Putting aside the phenomenal visuals and the rich sound design, which is a lot to put aside, honestly, that's a good half of the game right there.
Yeah,
I really enjoyed something that kind of expressed itself after I'd played a few hours in and I had a handful of things to do. The majority, the main things you're doing is you're traveling on your ship to different islands and locations, and you're either getting a specific item from NPCs there, mining a resource, or meeting with somebody. And as you travel, that takes time. It's not instantaneous. And you spend that time on your boat. And you have a handful of different things you can do on your boat. And a lot of your time is spent managing crops and forging materials, breaking down wood into planks and ores into ingots and things like that. And at the very beginning of the game, some of the main NPCs referred to us, our character, as like a hyperactive, like really energetic girl. And I was like, I mean, just kind of sitting here fishing, like a lot of knots, not a lot's going on. And then a few hours in, once I had stuff to do, I couldn't stop doing things. And I thought, hang on a second, they've done a great job here of giving me a lot to do on my boat. So I'd run down and plant some crops, and then I'd jump up a couple different buildings on my boat, and then I'd forge something, and I'd slide off a rooftop, do a backflip, and land so I can reorganize the ship. And I was like, dang, I am a hyperactive, like little energetic girl trying to get all these things done. This is fun as heck. And I always had something to do. And then I was busy, busy, busy. And then we landed somewhere and I had something else to do. And I was like, whoa, they did a really good job of A, keeping you busy with lots of different things to do, and B, making you kind of feel like the character and how they're actually described. In some games, they just tell you, "Hey, you're a cold-blooded killer," and I'm like, not really. Like maybe a little bit, but I'm mostly just having fun. And some games, like, "Hey, you're lighthearted and funny." I'm like, actually, I'm just here to get the grind on and ignore all the plot and story. And the player kind of feels a disconnect from the character they're supposed to be. But in this game, they did a good job of marrying my actions with what the player would want to do. So I wanted to run around and do a ton of things which reflected who my character was. It's kind of a really specific thing, but some that I noticed at the beginning and that really like carried, like, dang, they did a good job on a handful of different things that bring you into the feeling of actually being this character.
no, I like that a lot. I would just say I definitely agree. First off, um, but I think as we'll probably go into further into the podcast, that busy bee and always having something to do almost kind of becomes this game's downfall, in my opinion.
Mhm.
We'll get into that once we discuss the mechanics, I think.
Yeah.
It's so weird how, in a lot of ways, the amazing first impression of this game is very much most of this game, which isn't a bad thing, but it has a hard time keeping up with that, I think.
Uh-huh.
And so let's go ahead and move on to the next section. Let's go ahead and talk about the graphics, the sound, and the presentation.
Awesome. Hit me with what stood out to you the most graphically. Like, what did you enjoy, and then and sound wise also, and then what you think could have been improved or toned down, something like that. What are your thoughts?
Definitely the animations of the characters were
Ooh,
my favorite part of the game by far. Like,
very good.
especially when you would go and you feed one of them. That's one of the mechanics in this game is you have to like keep all of your animal friends uh, fed and satisfied and happy and do things that make them happy. And every time you feed one of them, they would have a unique animation for what they do when they eat, right? And they would have a unique animation for when you hug them, and which is what just one of the best parts of this game.
That
Probably
was nice. So
actually,
feel good.
yeah, let's go back to first impressions. That was the best first impression. 100% was going up and hugging everyone. It just for the first like several hours, I just never didn't get a warm feeling when I hugged these
I
characters.
was like, I love you all.
Yeah, there's just
That's
so
good.
much personality. Like I said, this game is bleeding with personality, and almost all of that comes in with the animation and the characters.
Mhm.
So what about you? What did you think of what hit you the most? What strikes you the most about this?
So many little things had their own animation, which kind of plays off of what you're just talking about, where there wasn't like a default resource gathering animation. There was a different one for fishing and a different one for cutting a tree down, different one for mining, and each of them felt hand drawn and they felt real. You feel like this character, this young girl that you're playing as, you feel as if you're her and that you can see her expressive, cheerful attitude and her focus when she's working on something and her intensity when she's trying to accomplish something difficult. Everything felt animated and really fluid, working well into each other. There were very few, if any, that I can remember moments where you walk up to, let's say you wanted to mine a rock to get some ores or something. You walk up, press E, and the character didn't ever just like suddenly jump over an instance, 2 frames into this is the mining animation. But instead, she uses this little ball of light, which turns into tools. And so I'd walk up, press E, and then she would unfold this big pickaxe, and then you try and time your strikes so that you did it right. And I was like, wow, I felt really fluid instead of like, I am now performing the mining animation. But instead, they were all done really seamlessly so that for the most part, there was no sudden jumps between these animations. And instead, you felt like your character was alive and was really fluid. And that was just a really beautiful, like hand drawn touch that I enjoyed.
100% agree. Those like unique there's little unique bits of flavor in every aspect of this game, which
Mhm.
there are lots and lots of aspects to this game. Again, we'll talk about this later when we talk about the mechanics.
Mhm.
Um, so, and also, I just think can't be understated is the sound design as well.
Oh, yeah.
The sounds that you make, especially my favorite sound effect, probably is when you get when you finish sending a spirit back. You've completed their quest lines and they're ready to move on. There's like this oh no, what I can't even remember what I'm thinking of. It's like when oh, this is what it is. This is what it is. When you first get a
There we go.
spirit, they
Oh, and
transform
they
into
transform.
their spirit form, right? Their animal form. Um, and they turn. There's like this flashing golden light effect, and then the sound is like boom, 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 poof. Like it's like this bassy thing. I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
And it
Really
really,
rich.
yeah, exactly. It sells you on what is happening. It's just it matches the moment perfectly, and it's really cool. Um, and again, none of my complaints about this game have to do with the style
Mhm.
or the quality of the animation or the quality of the presentation. It is like perfect in their execution, I think.
You could tell they put a lot of care and like love into this game. Yeah, I would recommend this game to anybody, even if you're not into, more of the collectathon resource management stuff. The first 5 hours are just so fresh and original from the modern oversaturated market of, all right, here's how to go here and kill this, or here's a really weak storyline. They're like, listen, explore the world, meet some really unique individuals. Like all the spirits are very different people. And just kind of experience it for yourself. Like there's so much care put into the visual design of this game that you can't not enjoy the first half of it. Enjoy the game as it is, and respect the designers for that.
For sure. Yeah. I just think another example, they have just so much detail in it's like a somewhat simple art style, but there's so much
Mhm.
detail and care put into this world. Especially like I just imagine when the sun is rising, you can see the sun beams coming in through the
Yeah.
many pieces of the ship. And this is a 2D game, and you can see the
Mhm.
light rays coming from this little circle, this 2D circle of a sun, and it just makes the whole thing feel so grounded. Um,
Mhm.
and it just does it so well. So, do you have anything else you'd like to say about the graphics of the presentation?
No, I thought it was good. I really enjoyed your side character is your cat in this game, and she just kind of like runs along with you and does stuff. But the cat has its own animations for getting around during
Mm.
your crazy movement. So when you're jumping and floating and gliding, the cat has its own animations, and it's pretty freaking hilarious. When you jump on water, the cat's floating on this little ball of light, it just looks terrified to fall in, and you're like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I'll leave." The cat's like, "Bruh, what are we doing?" And when floating down, when you're doing your hover thing and you're floating, the cat kind of puffs up into this big ball, and they just had a lot of fun with it. You could tell the animators weren't like, "Well, the cat's got to be very serious and focused and keep us grounded." They're like, "Ah, cats hate water. Let's make the cat hate water." And I was like, "Ha, that cat hates water." And it was just like, you could tell they had fun with it, and I really enjoyed kind of experiencing the labor of love that designing the visual aspect and the animations of this game clearly was. And I really respect the developers for putting it out. We definitely have some complaints, both of us, when it comes to long term and gameplay wise. But, I can't understate how fun the game was to play, especially at the beginning. It's just so fresh and so new, and I really enjoyed it.
Perfect. All right, let's go ahead and move on to the narrative and the story.
Mhm.
Straight off the bat, I mean, we kind of covered it a little bit.
Mhm.
The narrative of this game, the overarching plot, is actually incredibly simple.
Oh, yeah.
It is like you are the Spiritfarer, you have to help spirits move on to the afterlife. And then that's it. That's really the
Yeah.
whole story. Um,
Exactly.
but I think the cool thing about this game is that it is not about the story. It is about all
Mhm.
of these stories that you experience as you play.
Mhm.
Every single character has very interesting backstories and very interesting um, personalities and things that only come through if you pay attention. They mention
Mhm.
characters and different events that happen in their life throughout the course of your time with them. And when
Mhm.
you really pay attention and really study it, you can actually piece together how their life went down and why they're struggling to move on. You know, some of them are more simple than others, and some of them you get rid of faster than others, and all of this. And I think it's all trying to just help them become satisfied with the life they lived, to help them gain
Mhm.
the perspective that they needed to move on. Um, so yeah.
I agree. The main aspect, the main story of the game is summed up in a sentence, like you said. You're a fairy master, you release spirits to the afterlife. But those spirits are the core gameplay. They are the core both motivation, the thing you're looking after, the best part of the game as you meet these different characters and enjoy their personality quirks. It brings a whole new like idea of everybody's a person, everybody's people, instead of NPC number 12, NPC number 10. You feel that these are characters and that they have real emotions and real problems, things they want to overcome. They do a very excellent job of giving the individual characteristics, making them realistic. One thing that stood out to me is one of the characters you meet kind of early on. As the game develops, as you complete her quests and accomplish her the things that she wants to do before you release her to the afterlife, she starts to get dementia and kind
Mm.
of forgets who you are and begins thinking that you're her daughter from a long time ago. And I actually have a relative that's suffering from the same thing, and that kind of hit home for me really intensely. Like, wow, this is a game where maybe this person's a snake or this person's a little hedgehog, and it's a fictional game, but they're doing a good job of touching on real world events and real world emotions and feelings. The ability to hug characters, the fact that the characters have personal problems, not just I am angry and I am sad, but I'm frustrated with the lack of parenting I had as a child, and that is, I feel, stunted my growth into my adulthood. Whoa,
Yeah.
and that's a lot. There's a reason that one of the tags on Steam for this is story rich and emotional. They're
Hmm.
like, guys, this is about working with people to overcome real problems, very real stuff, but in a fictional, fantasy, lighthearted way that kind of helps you tackle these big, deep events.
Yeah, and I think adding on to what you said as an example is like not just uh was I affected negatively as a child because of lack of skill on the parenting.
Uh
Um
huh.
how can I forgive? How can I move
Oh,
on? You
yeah.
know, I my father's gone. I can't talk to my father. How can I say, I can't move on unless I forgive my father, but how can I do that? And so,
What he's done. Yeah.
these quests and the tasks you do are all about the character growth and helping essentially they become your friends to
Mhm.
deal with these very serious and very real problems that arise you have when you're human, right?
Mhm.
When
Yeah.
I think it's they do such an amazing job. Every single one of these people have unique problems,
Mhm.
um, but they are portrayed in a way that you can empathize. They're
Right.
all I the one my favorite character, a tool, the big
Mhm.
frog guy. He likes food
He's
and
great.
everything to do with food, but his main hang up really is probably I think it's that he misses his children and he misses the simple life he used to have that he doesn't have anymore. And so a lot of your tasks are about cooking food for him, and then he eats it, and he's like, "Oh, this reminds me of when times were better." And when I could have this meal with my family. Um,
Mhm.
and so you just hit the perfect point, and that is this game really does a fantastic job of affecting the person playing and letting the
Mhm.
person who's playing gaze into these stories. And that's where the game shines the most. At least under the surface is where it shines the most. Obviously it's
Mhm.
got amazing art and amazing art style, and it is aided, that totally aids the story that they're telling. Sometimes they even your character has very expressive emotions that I end up just skipping over because I'm busy reading the dialogue. But if you
Yeah.
really sit there and look, they're having a conversation. They're not moving their mouths, but they're frowning and they're feeling sad and they're smiling and they're laughing. So the story is portrayed so well through these characters, and you can tell that there was a lot of passion and love that went into each and every one of these.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right, so that's kind of it for the story. Do you have any other notes?
No, I think we covered it pretty good. The focus is the spirits. The focus is letting go and understanding and learning to say goodbye, as they say in their trailer for the game.
A
So
hundred
I think
percent.
is yeah, very well done.
Awesome. All right, moving on to the next section, the one that we've all been waiting for, the one where we're going to praise this game and also kind of dig on this game. The mechanics and the gameplay. Let's talk about it.
Good stuff, baby.
This is the real meat. If Oxenfree's real meat was the story, then this one's real meat is the gameplay, right? Because the story, I kept playing this game. I played 15 hours of this game. It takes about 25 hours to beat. I played 15 hours of this game purely because the story kept me hanging in there. Right? If not for the compelling story, I would have given up after probably the first 5 hours. Like you say.
After that initial experience. Agreed.
So gameplay wise, let me just list off a couple of the mechanics in this game, or let me just list off the styles of gameplay that this game has. Ready?
Yeah, here's what we got.
Okay, this is a platformer that has fishing, building, exploration, crafting, cooking. You have to manage the mood of your crewmates. You've got side quests, you've got main quests, you've got to resource collection and resource management, base building, and I don't know, am I missing any others?
We could talk that you've got to unlock your personal abilities as well.
Oh,
you
yeah, it's an
your ship.
RPG. Yeah,
It's an RPG. That's big. You gotta your ship. Not only does it need to be built, but then increase the size, increase the ability, and a lot. I'm gonna be real. You get a bunch of different buildings on your boat, right? And I spent like a good maybe 20 minutes every session just rearranging all of my crap so I could fit it, and then I would forget where I put everything. So I'm running around my ship like, where's my farm? I just had that. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So a lot of it was like managing this huge cluster of stuff. As every time you get a spirit, you build a little house for them, and then when they leave, they die to go to the afterlife. The house stays there.
Yep.
So you never. I was like, wait a second. I
what
never.
do I do with this?
It's just junk. I'm like, what do I mean, you can use it to activate like a very particular event to get money and stuff, but like for the most part, it just sits there and like looks sad, and you're like, dang, I miss that person. I don't want this here anymore, and it takes up space. Oh boy.
Yep. So I don't really know exactly how we should tackle this because I guess just a brief overview. There is so much crap in this game.
There's a lot.
So much stuff and so much stuff to do. So many resources, and
so
that
little things.
That is the killer, man. I feel like this game was everything. Other than like having to, no, there was even hunger management too. It just wasn't for your own character. So it was like literally everything. It was like a crafting, survival, open world. It wasn't horror. It was an adventure. There was like not necessarily combat, but almost with like the dragons.
Oh yeah.
And it was just.
So much.
What do I do? And especially at the end of the game, I had, I took my ship, I had it fully upgraded, ready, right? And I was 15 hours in, even less because I did it before I actually stopped playing the game. I had a fully upgraded ship, and it's like, okay, where do I put my money now?
Yeah, what do I do? What do I buy?
I haven't even beaten the main story, and I've got a fully upgraded ship. What do I put my money towards? And then you have to go to so many different places and travel sometimes all the way across the map just for one resource that you need to build a house and whatever.
There was like no waypoints. They would say, hey, take me here. And I'm like, where's that? And they're like, you'll figure it out.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, I won't. I'm dumb, bro. I'm reading the name of every freaking island.
I want to go eat some food on Hummingberg. Okay.
I'm like, what's that?
What's
Have I been there?
Oh my gosh. And so let's go through some of these individually and,
let's get some specifics
to them.
Down. Yeah.
Yes. So because there's the good, the bad, and the ugly, really. So first off, let's start with the good. The good is every single one of these things with 20 hours less gameplay. The good is the fact that every single one of these mechanics is really well implemented, but it does not
Hmm.
have any staying power.
That's the big killer. Yeah.
So and oh my gosh, even for the base building, right? Every single base, sorry, we're trying to go to specifics, but every single base is has its own, so there's the houses and then there's like the little crafting stations, and it's like the game is trying to make things harder than it has to be. Um
There's so many extra resources and materials.
yeah, it's like I imagine you have to go, you build you get metals and you have to learn how to smith those metals and like craft them into the bars that you want, right? So you learn
Hmm.
how to smelt them into bars. Then you take those bars or the ores and you have to put them into the crusher to get dust of those minerals, or
Hmm.
you take rocks and get dust of those minerals, and then you have to take them all the way to maybe what might be the opposite end of your ship to go to a
It's gonna
smithy to smith
just
them
be
together
big.
into one plate, and it takes a whole mini game just to do that. Oh, and you wanted to chop some wood, you wanted to cut your bar of wood, it's got every single one of those you've got to slowly have it come across and like play this little mini game with your log in order to cut some wood. And
Hmm.
man, the
That
first
was like
time,
so much.
again, yeah, the first time is fine, but when you do it for 15 hours, it really, really wore me down, especially when I was trying to beat this game to try and get ready for the podcast. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
it's not that I didn't have the time to beat this game, but
Hmm.
I almost dreaded coming back because there was so much stuff. I think right at the beginning, you said that there are so many options and so many things to do, and you do feel
Hmm.
like this crazy, hyper energetic girl running around doing all of these things, and you're helping solve problems, you're doing these quests, you're checking boxes off, which is great, but then you multiply that by 5, and you have to, just to do one quest, you have to visit like 5 different buildings on your ship, you have to visit 3 different islands to get the right resources, and then you've got to smelt them all together and play a ton of mini games just to do one quest. Whereas
Hmm.
before, just to do one quest, you just have to visit one place and talk to somebody, right? And so
Yeah.
this, it's like this scale of like everything just starts to take so long to do because
Uh huh.
you need these complicated resources for these quests. In order to get these complicated resources, you have to go and get a ton of basic ones and then mix them and match them into what you want. And sometimes, if you don't know, I had to pull up a guide so many times just to figure out where I could find my stuff because I didn't want to spend the time looking for it.
Hmm.
So, man, I just went on a rant there. Uh,
You hit on some really good points in that the game leads off with a really strong story and really strong characters, and that's what I was in here for. I was ready for that. And then it kind of pivots after your first 5 to 8 hours into story happens, yes, but story happens much less frequently. And in between these little blurbs and bits of information and movement in the story and unlocking these characters' backstory and who they are, you have this grind sesh. And I didn't sign up for the grind sesh because that's not what the game was supposed to be about. It's supposed about being a fairy master and exploring and caring for people and helping them move on, not mining resources. I'm reminded of games like Starbound and Terraria where everything's kind of divided into tiers. So first tier resources are iron and gold and silver, and then second tier resources are platinum and tungsten. You kind of work your way up so that as you get stronger, you're able to get access to more materials, and then those materials in turn build stronger things. And it kind of started to do that, except the tier wasn't like, okay, I now have a huge amount of iron. It was like, no, I still have to keep getting the simple, dumb things. I don't get to stop doing that. That doesn't become easy to do or instant, or there's always the chore of getting these base materials, and then you spend 10 minutes getting them all the way down this longer and longer and longer process doing these menial tasks to get the item that you very specifically need, and all it does is unlock another quest, and you're like, That
Yep.
took me 2 hours to figure out how to make glass panes, three
Yeah.
machines. I don't I don't care about your kids anymore, man. Just dude, what the heck? You just want me more of that?
Yeah, it
And
turns into learning how to say goodbye to please say goodbye.
I was like,
It's
oh, I hate this guy's quest. She has to be doing the dumbest stuff,
yeah, I
At least
remember
she just wants food, And
yeah, I mentioned a tool before. He has a
yeah,
quest where the first one is his first like food quest. He's like, "I want pork chops." And you're
yeah.
like,
I was
"Oh,
like,
you
okay.
want pork chops? Okay, where do I get pork?" Five
I've
hours
never
later,
seen pork. Yeah,
yeah, 5 hours later, you get to an island, and then the shopkeeper is selling pork, and you're like, I can do this quest finally.
yes.
And then
He
you
said no story progression, no involvement so far. He's just asleep on your ship, wandering
and you're
around.
feeding him the whole time. You're feeding him
Uh huh.
food, and he's just like,
Still gotta
I
give him
could
some.
really go for some pork chops
I'm like,
instead.
I can't find pork chops.
Yep. And so it's just like this game gets in its own way, right? It
Hmm.
doesn't it really aside from the first few hours, it really has a hard time just letting you experience these characters because this is where it's strongest. And
Hmm.
a very important part of progression for me is feeling the progression, not just
Hmm.
doing it, not just marking tasks off a list, right? Even like Ubisoft games have the idea you feel your progression because you get better. You begin to
Faster,
you get
stronger.
rewards for it. Yeah, you begin to unlock things. But in this game, the progression really when you make a glass pane and you build this you make a ton of stuff for this person you don't really see it and it doesn't affect you at all.
Yeah. They're just like, thanks.
Yeah, they're
So
like,
anyway, I need a
thanks.
mini fridge, and I'm like, mini fridge?
Yep.
Uh,
I'm really cold and I need an HVAC system in my house. And you're
I'm
like,
like,
"Okay, I'll go ahead and spend, 20 minutes making you an HVAC system." And then they're like, "Oh, I'm awake now. Guess I'm good now. It's not cold anymore." That's the end of the story.
I was like, that wasn't the story. Who are you? Where you come from? Give me some emotional reward, or make me more efficient at mining, or give me someone that gives me free resources. And there's very, very little of that.
Yeah, it's
One
like
thing that
if
you,
you're going to make an HVAC system, make everything warmer so maybe you run faster. I don't know. It's
yeah,
just
can
yeah.
I get iron easier and quicker in these base materials? No, I still have to travel to specific islands or locations. I still have to mine everything by hand. There's no like, eventually in Minecraft, you just get enough resources, you just buy stuff from the villagers. You don't have to work for it. There's nothing like that. You just keep grinding, and the grind becomes longer and longer. And the key pivotal emotional moments that the characters bring become more and more spaced apart to the point where you're like, I don't even remember what do I need to do for this quest?
Yeah,
Oh
you
yeah, I
you don't
gotta
even remember who the person is anymore, you
or
know?
why it mattered to them. You're like, listen, I got a lot of chores to do. What do you want? I stopped feeding everybody like halfway through.
No,
It's
me
like, I don't have
too.
time for food.
Yeah, I
Shut up. I don't care if
yeah.
you're hungry.
It's that no,
I
that's
just,
literally it. You're
oh
like
man.
I want to you have to go and try and give these people food, but I'm just like, "Okay, you can all eat the exact same thing and I'm just going to make a bunch of freaking popcorn so that
It's
you
so much
get off my
rice.
back." So much rice. Yeah, so
That
much
was
stuff.
so funny.
It's like, "Okay, how do I make rice flour?" Oh, you have to build a fetching windmill. And I'm like, dude,
It's like, what?
what? There's a windmill?
Come on, bro. Just make me hug. Couldn't we go back to when I could just hug everybody and
Yeah.
that was the quest? I
And
like
and
those quests.
and it's crazy because not only do you take the rice to the cooking to the kitchen to
Mhm.
cook, you've got to take that rice, crush it in the windmill, go find your tuna from across the map, and then cook the rice flour
I
and the
remember
tuna
that.
together or whatever it is, right? So you have
Yeah,
to
yeah.
go through three different mini games just to make one freaking plate.
Mhm. It never gets easier. Spiritfarer is like at the beginning, the idea of the management is such a good idea. Is that wow, you get these houses, you help them upgrade their house, and your boat quickly looks better and more well put together and more the upkeep looks nice. You have it's so alive and active. Everyone's always got something to say if you want to talk, or if you're busy, that's cool too. You get to interact with them in really unique ways based on their attitude. Their dialogue they give to you is great, but towards the end of the game, it becomes less of an emotional journey with your friends and more of, okay, I am in charge of the ship. I am managing resources and keeping track of input and output and efficiency. And I stopped having fun with the movement. And the movement was something I really, really enjoyed because it was fun and it was fast. When
Yeah.
you slide off a rooftop, you just pick up speed. When you get the double jump, so much opens up to you. I was like,
Yep.
this is great. And then I started not having fun with that anymore. I didn't really care about setting up things so that I could soar around my ship and go to new places. It was about efficiency. How do I
Hmm.
get from point A to point B as fast as possible? Okay, running is slow. We're not doing running. I could slide off these roofs and then jump onto this rope to get all the way over there and then drop down a couple layers and I'm there. Now I need to, and I was like, hang on, this is a spreadsheet manager. I'm managing movement ticks and how fast do I get places and what's the most efficient location path for me to take on my map instead of where should I go and explore and meet new people. It was like, okay, based on I'm getting a ruler out, I'm measuring my screen based on the speed of this, and okay, that will be the most efficient. And then I stopped. I was like, what? This isn't fun. I'm not having fun. I'm working a job here.
Yeah, that it really
Where's the
turns into a job.
story? Where did it go?
And honestly, I would not have a problem if that's what it turned into. Was like it became a matter of efficiency. I wouldn't have a problem if the gameplay reflected what if the moment to moment gameplay reflected what the overarching gameplay was. If you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying,
If there
right?
were actual improvements to your efficiency
Yeah,
and
if you
abilities.
began to be able to run faster, or if you were able to like climb ladders quicker, or say maybe you could skip the mini games. Maybe you could,
Yeah.
maybe if you're trying to make a glass pane, you don't have to bang it 15 times before it turns
Oh,
into a glass
seriously.
pane. Oh, I need 3 glass panes. Okay, give me a minute. Give me 2
Uh,
minutes to put that together for you. Oh, I don't have of the one resources I need. Guess I have to travel all the way across the map just to get that.
they even had a solution semi-implemented, I think, that thinking back on it, I
The
realized
turtle
if they had
things.
taken this idea, the turtles were good. I like those. But there was I don't know if I think it's an optional thing you can find, but there's a subscription service for food using in-game currency. It's not a real thing. But you pay one of the NPCs and like every like in-game week or something, they send you, you just randomly get a letter that's got a recipe for new foods and a couple of those food. And that was like an optional thing that I thought was kind of quirky and fun. And it was really nice in the I like the idea of just paying someone a large amount of the in-game currency and then they would give me resources periodically. And I was like, dang, what if they did that for iron and coal and wood? Where you just once you've reached a certain level of prestige with the boatmaster, or you have a certain amount of money, like a substantial amount, then you could pay an NPC, and then from then on, hey, here's your delivery of timber. And I'm like, excellent. I'm more efficient now. I don't have to worry about mining timber because I just get it delivered. I get to go use that timber and play the little game and then make it into planks. And now my base material is no longer timber, it's planks. And then later on that levels up. Or maybe if the spirits did some of that, occasionally they give you like a fruit or a board or
A
something.
one
I'm like,
plank of wood,
thanks.
yeah.
Yeah, one plank. I was like, bruh, dude, I need like 30 of these because you all want all of this garbage. If they'd
Yep.
taken that type of concept of here, now the stuff gets delivered to you, or as you progress, the NPCs you meet are more and more useful, or they build automated machines, something like that to actually help you feel like you've done better or you are performing better rather than
Yeah.
you have done more. I'm like, I'm looking for efficiency. Make me efficient. And I think that was the one thing that killed both of our enthusiasm. Maybe it's just how we play games. Maybe it's the way we like games. If you're into games that are much slower paced and long term and you'll put in dozens of hours, this is for you. Go nuts. It's beautiful. It's magical. We love it. But for us, it kind of pivots halfway through and doesn't embrace the pivot. It feels like the artist got sent out of the room and you had a bunch of game designers in there and writers, and they were like, all right, so now that the artists are gone and the magic's out of the room, how do we make this game be a game? They're like, what if
Yeah.
you just had a bunch of dumb crap you had to do all the time and it never got easier, faster, or more efficient? There was just more of it. That sounds like a game. And I'm like, dang, you guys did so good on this, except that you kicked the artists out halfway through. Bring the creatives back in. I don't want. I would much rather play a game that was story after emotional moment rather than a long grind fest with occasional brief respites where instead of being like a bittersweet moment when a spirit left and you hug them goodbye as they move on after accomplishing everything they could, after realizing who they were, accepting and loving themselves and those around them, and releasing them into the blissful eternal afterlife. It was like, frickin' finally, I don't have to feed the snail anymore. Get off the ship. And I was like, okay, hang on. This game is not supposed to be about cruel people. It's supposed to be love and enjoyment. A good example, kind of someone that did something similar. The game Firewatch is a pretty popular game. You may know it.
Mhm.
I recommend it. The game's only a few hours long. The gameplay in that game is zero. Like it's pick up the pine cone, look at your map, walk. That's it. That's the whole thing. And it was like one of the best games I've ever played because the story was given the forefront and the artists were given the forefront. It was beautiful to look at, perfectly put you in the moments to be there, and the story was really engaging. No spoilers or anything, but it gets kind of nuts as you go through. The gameplay sucks because there's no actual game. It's just fucking simulator,
Very
except with a
similar to
great
Oxenfree.
right, except the story was there, and in here the story stopped taking center stage, and that is like our big peeve. We've been building up to this the whole podcast. That was our big thing. It's such a beautiful 10-hour game, and then it's a boring, long, arduous 24-hour game where you keep going. But the
Yep.
first 10 hours were great. I loved them. If it just stopped, you know, if we just got either make me more efficient or cut out some of this, menial chores and tasks.
Yeah. Yep. I think when you
Woo!
said that they nice one, nice one. When you said, they had a room full of game developers, and I was like, you know what? I don't think they had a bunch of game developers in there. I think they had every game developer in there.
They're like,
And
I
every
need my
single one of
mechanic.
them were like, "Oh, I should throw in a cooking mechanic. Oh, I should throw in a
This would be
a,
great.
a mining mechanic. Oh, let's do all this." And so it's really just
Cut a lot.
so much. It is so much for so little.
Hmm.
You know, you should. I don't know. The progression does not keep up with what you have to do to progress. It's really hard to stick with it. And yeah, like you said, that's the whole point of this is that it's this game's first impressions and the amazing things it does. Where we talked about it has a unique animation for everything you do. That takes forever. When it becomes about efficiency, and this is the 500th time that you've pulled out your scythe to slice your
Oh, yeah.
crops,
I'm like,
and
hurry up.
she goes wah phoom, and cuts the thing, and then sits there for like a second and a half, and you're like, just put it down. So
oh man! Every time I would accidentally re-water something that I just watered, I got like actually angry because she does the whole like turns the ball of light into the thing and waters the plots, and I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, I made a mistake. Leave! I'm like slapping my keyboard. Get out of there!
yeah, every
Come
time
on.
you take some food out of the oven, she has to like have the animation come where her oven mitts go on,
It's
and
so
then it
cute.
solidifies,
The first 20
and then
times.
yeah, it's so cool. It is such a great animation, but you get sick of it after 500 meals.
Man.
After you cook 500 meals, This isn't supposed to be like a real life simulation game. This isn't
Yeah.
Red Dead Redemption 2, where you can kind of forgive it for that because it's going for realism. This game is like trying to be super realistic in a world where she had the
Anything goes.
the funny thing is, right, she has this Everlight. We haven't even talked about this.
That's like her item, right?
Yeah, it's her one item that turns into anything that she can use. So it's your fishing pole,
Pickaxe,
it's your hoe, it's your planter, it's your watering can, it's everything. And so she uses that for everything. And the funny thing is, it has zero use. Because if you're on your boat and if you're in your garden and it's gonna take 5 freaking seconds to chop down some plants, why doesn't she just pick up a metal scythe? Why is there
Mhm.
even the concept of this Everlight, right? It's like if we're going for realism and it's going to take just as long with this magical item than it does with anything else, why do we have the magical item?
Yeah, if it's so magic, why does it have to turn into real world
Yeah,
things
why not just
and
have it turn
perform all
into a
this,
fetching ball of water and
right?
drop it on the
Exactly. Why
thing?
can't it just like big beam of light flashes out, bam, okay, all the crops are cut and they're in a packet, we're good. Well,
Yeah.
we're bringing up why is it not doing that? And they're like the obvious response is, well, the game isn't about, just resources and being efficient. It's about the colorful animations and the realistic expressions. And we're like, then why
Then
are
why
we over
is
here resource managing?
then why is 95% of this game resource management, right?
Right.
It is so
There's
cuz you
just the
want to love it. It's
disconnect there.
sad. It's really sad, honestly,
Mhm,
cuz I really loved this game when it started. I was like, "Oh my gosh, this
mhm.
movement is great." And
I couldn't put it
it
down.
did get a little bit easier when I swapped to a controller finally and I was able to kind of have a more casual experience by kind of leaning back and playing with a
There you
controller.
go. There you go.
But it's still the chore. It is a chore to play this, and I don't want it to be. It shouldn't be, right? Uh, and it's okay if it's a chore if you're seeing the payoff. And this game is trying to do so many things where it's can't give you that payoff gameplay wise in a satisfying way because your character progression is established through getting these little balls of light and then finding a specific shrine and then transforming yourself so you can now zip line or something, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So it turns into you want to be able to progress and see yourself progressing, but the game doesn't let you do it in organic ways.
Mhm,
Um, and so it just is disheartening in the end.
mhm. The game is, at its core, great and very special. It's got a overwhelmingly positive review on Steam, and we both enjoyed it enough to put in over 10 hours each and really play the game and to really enjoy it. But longer than that, the originality of it, the colorful characters, design, and animation and movement begins to get stale in the face of overwhelming resource management, collection, and all this traveling you're doing as well. All that
Mm-hmm.
kind of gets in the way and dampens the experience for your average player. If this game is something, if you're the type of person to put in a lot of hours into a game and just keep playing the same game for a very long time and you enjoy a very relaxed gameplay, like you're saying, get a controller, lean back, put on the TV, just casually go about it and slowly progress. This is a great game for it. Its description on Steam says it's a cozy management game, and I think that's a great description, but doesn't really let you know that, hey, if you plan to play this game casually or you want to be done with it within a few weeks, that's not going to happen. It's something you need to keep track of: who needs to go where, how do you get this, what goes in that. And if you're willing to put in that time, then you can continue on with the story. But for your average player, the story becomes more and more disjointed and separated as resources quickly take center stage and overwhelm the player.
Yeah. Yeah, the most personality-less part of this game, which is the freaking rocks on the ground, are the thing
Hmm.
that you are worried the most about in the gameplay,
Yeah.
which is totally opposite. You should be focusing on these people you're talking with and these
Hmm.
people that need help. I get the whole cooking mechanic and everything, and I think it actually works with that interplay between the people.
Uh-huh.
But it just feels like it really gets in its own way. Overall, this game gets in its own way with its mechanics. Resource management and resource gathering um, doesn't provide for a lot of space to grow with your characters because every second that you're spending with your character or with the character you're talking to is time spent not getting resources for other characters, right? And so
Yeah.
you have like this weird like battle in your mind where it's like, okay, I wish I had time to talk to this character, but at me and as a person in real life, we're both, on holidays. We should have time, but like there's stuff we want to do. We don't have all
Hmm.
day to play video games. And I want to get done with this game and I want to feel like this game respects my time, but it doesn't feel like it respects my time very well. Not like I'm not trying to say, oh, my time is so valuable. Well, it is valuable, right? But and I do think everyone's time is valuable, and if you are okay spending your time gathering a ton of resources so you can listen to 3 lines of or reread 3 lines of dialogue from a character, then sure, that's fine, I guess.
Hmm.
But that is not what I really wanted from this game. It's not really what I expected. And overall, it's just not. It didn't feel good in the
Hmm.
end.
There was this disconnect. I want to provide a few solutions I think that could either fix the game in the aspect that we're complaining about, or also just may be an option to overwhelm it, because we've kind of dumped on it a lot, and
Yeah.
that the game's extremely well rated. We don't want to tell you, hey, this game is bad because we're really impatient, you know. But there's the things that we dislike, I think could be solved with a few simple things. We enjoyed the story. We loved the story. I thought it was great, you know? And one thing I want to do is get to more story no matter what. That's your goal, is to get to more story. And I think if they had just kept the resources the same as the your base kind of tier 1 stuff, like these 2 types of wood and a couple of ores, if that had been what you had to deal with the whole game, that would be awesome, and there was no other resources. I love the idea of having the extra food, because the food was trying to be a really interesting part of the game, where characters would actively like or dislike different types of food, which would affect their mood, which could affect the dialogue and how they acted. And so some characters really liked fancy food, and some of them liked really homey comfort food. And I had at the beginning a lot of fun trying to make different dishes, and there's tons of different dishes, stuff you fish out of the ocean. You're finding mushrooms and strawberries and mixing everything you can think together in the garden. And that was a whole avenue to explore that I largely ignored after I got going, because the resources are much more critical to the progression of the story, the advanced resources, rather than making sure everyone has their favorite food. So if I
Yes.
think they'd kept the resources, stopped it after a certain point, and let us play with how the food goes, that could be the thing that you discover as you go to different islands, is different types of food, different characters, different locations, instead of just adding more resources on top of you, because then we get into that a lot. I think if they wanted to do more resources, that the idea of having stuff get shipped to you, or somebody, or you being more efficient when you mine things, so that when you mine iron, you don't get 6 pieces, you get 20 pieces, or you just have a huge amounts of it to get a lot quicker, so that you spend less time on the little stuff and more time on the more advanced things. I think that would solve it as well. The idea that we kind of want to put forward is that we wanted to get to the story rather than sit around playing this game, because the story took our attention so quickly and so with such intensity at the beginning. It was what we wanted. The Spiritfarer defines itself as, this is a story game that is emotional, that is rich in character development. That's what we want to do. And we're like, awesome. Give me more of that. It sounds like gameplay is second. And then halfway through, gameplay became primary.
Yes, for sure. And I also I think that's a great idea. And I think another thing is like I think the more you do a mini game, you should get faster at it.
Yeah. Get more
So,
efficient.
yeah, it's like okay, I have this log cutting mini game and now the lines get straighter and the logs move faster cuz I get better at it.
Yeah.
Instead of
That'd be
having
great.
it always take a set amount of time, it's like at a certain point, do you really need to have the skill based thing on the loom to get some linen cloth? Do you
Yeah.
really need that? Even
And
though
it just
that was probably the
happens.
least annoying mini game in the whole game, honestly. But I just think those little mini games to craft materials. It's like uh, take like Minecraft.
Mhm.
This game is as if for every single
Resource.
iron weapon you had to craft, right? Say every single iron weapon you had to craft, you had to also craft a wooden weapon, then a stone, then
Yeah.
an iron, and if you want it to be gold, you would have to make a then to make it gold, and if you want it to be diamond, you have to make it diamond. Right? You have to go from the base all the way up to the thing instead of just jumping right to the rare resource and the rare uh output.
Mhm.
You have to not only have the rare resource, but you also have to crush stone and mix the stone with the metal and then hammer the metal and get all these different ingredients. So I think cutting down those steps would be super useful. Making certain mini games not you don't have to do them anymore at a certain point, right? Because that would feel like, I've done this, I can just get the loom. I can just
Yeah.
get these materials instead of having to like really work for them because I've earned them so many times over. It's not a matter of skill. It's not a matter of challenging me. It's a matter of patience.
Mhm.
And so I think like that would be my solution is just cut out or learn when to cut out those things. Like, okay, for instance, every single one of these activities is associated with a character, right?
Yeah.
So
That's a good point.
a tool has the wood cutting. The metal person has, I can't remember her name, has she's the one who you can get metal, smelt metals with. And then there's like this bird guy who does the smithy where you can forge things. And then there's all these characters who have a tie to a specific mini game that you do. So how about when you're done with that character, the mini game, you don't have to do it anymore,
Yeah.
right? Because it's like, oh, you've mastered this. They've taught you this, you've mastered it. And now you can take the grind out of this material. You can take
Mhm.
the grind out of this resource. Um, and I think that's what this game would benefit from a ton is just taking the grind out. Because the grind is fun at first, but then you shouldn't have to grind so much in the end, right? It's like
Yeah.
in a survival game in Minecraft, your reward for getting rare resources and like making a diamond pickaxe, your reward is that it takes less time to get wood, right?
Yeah. Like a lot less.
A
And you
lot
just
less
make
time.
the diamond tools and go.
Yeah, and it lets you focus on things other than the bare minimum. And I think this game just has a hard time. It should let you focus on other things, and it needs to let you focus on other things because those other things are so awesome and so well done. And that's why I think this game just wasn't for me. I think if I
Mhm.
had the patience and I had the time and I didn't want to move on to other things and I wasn't also trying to play other games at the same time, it would be a much stronger experience. And I just think it was, yeah, again, just not for me.
Yeah. This is a great game for someone that plays one game at a time. If you're that person, buy the game. Depending when you're listening to this, there's probably some sort of sale on Steam. Go get it. It's great. If you play one game at a time and that's how you play. We both happen, I got dozens of games in my library and I'm constantly switching between different stories I'm playing through and games I play with my friends and a lot of different stuff. And then there's also everyone's regular life of school or work or whatever you happen to be doing. And if you've got time for one game at a time and you love putting in the time and completing it, pick up Spiritfarer. It's great. They just released the farewell edition of the game, which is their last update. So the devs are done adding content to the game. Everything's there. All of these, they've added some new characters and all the improvements. The game is solid. The game's rated extremely well on a bunch of different platforms. Check it out if you're that person. Neither of us are that person. I was like,
Yeah.
listen, man, I dropped like 10 hours in this. What more do you want? Okay. The whole freaking, speaking of, the AAA studio, the latest Halo game, Halo Infinite, the entire story is about 10 hours long. That's the campaign. There's no like 30-hour long gameplay and resource grinding. They're like, listen, You're Master Chief. Here's how to kill things. All right. See you in 10 hours when you're done killing things. And it goes great. And this game kind of stretches what could have been a much more compact emotional story into a long, drawn out process. It's going to take a while, and you got to be prepared for that when you play it.
Yep. This game really doesn't have like big major wow factors. It just has a lot of really subtle things that will not carry you through. If you're like me, like if we had large earth-shattering events that happened and you don't
Yes.
know when they'll happen, that would be something else as well. That would be really cool to see. Like, I mean, I guess just uh as a reference, what I mean by that is like boss fights or whatever, because you feel like you've seen everything this game has to offer after the first 5 hours.
Yeah.
You're hoping
Agreed.
it isn't, but after 15 hours, it kind of is, unless there's like some major surprises in the end, which I don't really think there are. I don't
Prove
think I've
us
seen
wrong.
any.
You know,
Yeah,
let us
definitely.
know.
Uh,
Reach out,
yeah,
comment, or whatever.
yeah, 100% let us know if we're just, totally in the wrong and the game for some reason gets super good, like at 17 hours, right?
Yeah, we just missed it.
Yeah, we
Ah,
just
shoot.
barely missed it. But yeah, so overall, I think we've pretty much said everything we want to say. Do you have anything else other than
I
we'll,
don't
we'll
think
go
so.
on to the
Well,
subtitles then?
yeah, should we do our subtitles? I think that works great.
Okay, would you like to go first?
Yeah, I'll go ahead. For anyone new listening, at the end of our little review kind of discussion of a game, we'll give what we would, our personal decision on what we'd say as a subtitle for the game. So, Spiritfarer, colon, and a little subtitle beneath it. My one for this game is Spiritfarer. Animation almost makes chores fun because the game is beautiful to look at. I love the style of art. I love the care. I love the environment, and I end up doing my real world chores, and then I come into my game and do more fictional chores. And in neither real life or in the game am I getting any big story moments. I'm just kind of grinding to the next point. And it's so close to being a really enjoyable game for anybody, with the animation and the beautiful visuals, the beautiful story, excellent dialogue, unique characters, the real emotional value and core that the game has. And it almost makes the monotony of planting seeds and picking up seeds and putting the seeds back down and planting more seeds, but those are the wrong kinds of seeds. These chores, it almost makes it fun, but not quite for me. So there's my little subtitle. What about you?
All right, so mine was Spiritfarer, a not so fond farewell.
Mm,
And the reason I put this is because this game really, I feel the death of this game for me personally was totally going against the theming of the game. I think this game is all about um I don't know. It starts very strong and you have
oh yeah.
all of these great interactions and all these great moments and you discover and you feel like the adventure is fun and exciting. But the further you go down the rabbit hole, the more you realize it's kind of the same. And so, unlike the theme of the game, which is closure and learning to say goodbye, this game had me wanting to say goodbye.
Yeah.
It didn't feel help. It's helping others feel contented with saying goodbye, but it did not. I did not feel contented saying goodbye to this game because I feel like it didn't end strong. If it had ended strong, I would have kept it up, right?
Mhm.
And so it doesn't end strong for me. It just kind of it starts so good and then it just withers out, and which is it's almost worse than just being a really great game and having a bad ending.
Yeah.
Instead of
It's a shame. It's a
yeah,
shame.
because it feels like it's lost. There was so much potential and it wasn't there. And I know a lot of people love it yet again, but again, it just wasn't for me or also for or father there. So
Yeah.
um Yeah. Any closing statements? Any closing thoughts from you?
No, I think, well, yeah, for a final statement, I'd like to reiterate the game is good. And if you're
Oh
listening to
yeah.
this, wondering if you should play it, we recommend it. We absolutely do. We are not the right type of players to complete it all the way through, to drop in the 25, 30 hours needed to complete it all the way through. If you're that kind of person, enjoy it, dive into it. If you're not that kind of person, just wait till there's a sale on Steam or Epic Games or wherever you can find it, and then go ahead and pick it up and drop 5, 10 hours in and enjoy it. It was such a breath of fresh air when it came to a video game, something that I'd never played before, something wholly unique. What a unique way to talk about real life problems. What a unique art style to use in this environment. What unique characters and story design and areas. If only that, it just didn't carry out long term for us in particular. But if you're listening, feel free to grab the game. It's great. We endorse it. We're not sponsored by them in any way, by Thunder Lotus or Spiritfarer or Steam or anything, but we do recommend it. It was good. It's a fun game.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'll just echo your statement. Really, is just we do not have any judgments for those who enjoy this game, not even
Absolutely.
close. I think if you enjoy this game, then that is fantastic, and you should 100% keep on enjoying this game. Uh, but yeah, it just didn't vibe with me. You know, I'd rather spend my
Mhm.
time doing other things, and so that's not bad. It's just what happened. So
It's different. Yeah.
yep. Well, thank you everyone so much for watching. This has
Mhm.
been Digital Donuts, and we are happy to have been your hosts, Professor Pow and Orfather.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, thanks for listening. Next game coming up will be Inscription,
It's going
and
to be
I'm
awesome.
the the um, overview is Inscription is a 2021 horror deck building video game developed by Daniel Mullins Games and published by Devolver Digital. The game is set in a cabin where the player tries to escape by beating a demonic force in a card game. Inscription was released for Microsoft Windows, blah blah blah. Anyways, this looks like it'll be our kind of game. So we're
Mhm.
hoping
Mhm.
it'll be good. We're not trying to just play games that are good. I mean, we want to give thoughts and honest feedback and all that kind of thing. But uh, a lot of people have this on the radars as being something really great, and so we look forward to it.
We
Tune
checked
in.
on we checked on how long to beat, and it is about 10 hours. So we'll finish it. We
Yes, we
promise.
will
We'll,
finish this
we'll actually
one.
play the game.
Yeah, I guess really our problem was we should have done our research on Spiritfarer, but
We didn't know how
um,
long it was.
so tune in next time. I think we'll just shoot for around the end of the month,
Mhm.
the end of January, and you can just catch us back here on the same channel. We're working on getting this up on Spotify, but we just really don't have the means to right now. I mean, we
We
have
will
the
soon.
means, but we don't
It's
have
in the
enough of a
works.
follower. So if you would like to see this on Spotify or in another place, feel free to subscribe, like the video, leave a comment. We would love to put this on more convenient places for everyone so that they can listen to it and
Mhm.
all that. So thank you so much for tuning in, for watching, and we'll see you next month.